Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fandoms Assemble, where we're breaking down content from all your favorite fandoms, from the Marvel Universe to Harry Potter and the wider Wizarding World, Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, Game of Thrones, and really whatever else this golden age of IP decides to throw at us next. My name's Steve Oborn Jr., and as always, I'll be your host as we continue this journey through the magic of modern-day media. I'd like to take a moment to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending a portion of your day with me, and I hope you find this pod to be both entertaining and informative, but most importantly, a satisfying resource for all those who love to think way too hard about our favorite movies, books, and television shows. If you're like me, you run to the Reddit boards and Twitter feeds after that latest episode drops, and you're already Googling Easter eggs on the ride home from the movie theater. I'm here to tell you that that's okay. There are others of us out there, and I hope that Fandoms Assemble can be the arena where all that beautiful obsession can live and grow. Let's get to it. This episode of Fandoms Assemble will be covering Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 6, the finale. But before we get there, I just need to make a few quick statements. For all you who have been supporting the show, thank you very much. We're an international podcast now, folks. We got downloads in Canada, the UK, Deutschland, and Brazil. And I seriously cannot thank you guys enough for supporting the show and continuing to download. If you're listening right now, you don't got to stop the audio. Go into Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Click on subscribe, click on rate, click on review. Write me a little something. Let me know you're listening. Mash that download button. Also, for anyone listening who was wondering when the hell I was going to drop episode 6, I'd like to apologize. Much like all of you, at least if you're listening in the Northeast of the United States, I got absolutely destroyed by pollen over the last week, and I was not going to subject you all to the annoying sounds of my congested, stuffed up nose. But we're better now, folks. We're hopped up on Flonase. Hashtag no free ads. Flonase, sponsor me. And we're ready to cover Falcon and the Winter Soldier Episode 6. Let's get to it. But as always, before we get into the details of Episode 6, a quick recap of what happened in Episode 5. We got Sam and Bucky Barnes fighting John Walker, with Sam going away with the shield. We then see Zemo off to the raft before Sam meets Isaiah Bradley, and he tells him his story and tries to dissuade Sam from becoming Captain America. We then get great scenes of Sam and Bucky fixing the Wilson family boat. Both our boys get the respective therapy they need. Sam starts training with the shield. Carly Morgenthau meets with Bartok the Leaper and plots to attack the GRC. We then close out the episode with Sam finally opening the box, but we don't get to see what's in it, and John Walker making his homemade shield. We pick up where else but outside the GRC building in New York City, as the folks at the GRC get ready to vote on the Patch Act and the Flag Smashers get into position around the building. We have the New York Police Department outside with the street on lockdown as we see Sam fly in, and what we soon get to see is his new Shuri Tech Falcon Captain America suit. Now, I know I was worried that Bucky Barnes would not even be involved in this fight, but here we are. He's walking down the street and he meets up with Sharon Carter, who reveals herself under that cool face tech that we saw Black Widow use in prior movies. As Sam arrives, Carly gives the signal and the Flag Smashers smoke bomb the inside of the GRC, and they have guys both incognito and in Flag Smasher masks ushering the council to where they want them to go. Sam busts through the window, and man, does that suit look awesome. Although I gotta be honest, I can't really stand that cowl neck head thing. I know it's a very comics accurate costume, but that just doesn't play well. I hope they get rid of that before Captain America 4. Sam then makes his way to try and find the Flag Smashers hidden in the building when the guy asks him, hey, who are you supposed to be? And he says, I'm Captain America. The security guard then makes a callback to Torres and Wilson's conversation earlier in the season where he says, I thought Captain America was on the moon, before Sam instantly picks up that the Flag Smashers are trying to move the GRC. They're going to attack them on the transports, and he alerts Bucky and Sharon. But before he could play a bigger role himself, enter Bartok the Leaper, whose sole purpose here, call back to last episode with his conversation with Carly Morgenthau, is to kill Sam Wilson, the Falcon. A lot of quick cuts in this scene. We get a lot of shots of the Flag Smashers leading the GRC out of the building, as our boy Bucky is approached by one of the Flag Smashers carrying a cell phone, saying, hey, Carly wants to have a chat. They start discussing their past, and as Bucky tries to reason with her, Carly again says, listen, it doesn't matter if I live or die. She then questions Bucky, asking if he's ever fought for anything bigger than himself. Carly, do your homework, girl. This man fought in World War II for the United States to bring down the Nazis. The reason why you're not speaking German is because Captain America Bucky Barnes, at least in the Marvel Universe, and the rest of the United States military pushed back the Nazis, and the Allies won World War II. Second, Bucky Barnes just came back from defeating Thanos. Your entire way of life, your entire movement here is predicated on the snap, and you trying to get things back to the way they were during the snap, where your people were able to live freely wherever they wanted and not in these refugee camps. Bucky Barnes and the rest of the Avengers are the reason why half the universe returned. So, between his military service and his time as an Avenger, the fact that she asked him if he's ever tried to do anything bigger than himself is just insulting. She then basically reveals that this entire time while he was supposed to be tracking people through the building, she just gave him a call to distract him. She says thank you, they hang up, and on we go. We then get a shot of the Flag Smashers locking the GRC delegates up in the truck, and he puts a special lock on the back. Now, again, all these guys are incognito. They're in security guard uniforms. Sharon Carter is in tow, while Sam keeps fighting Bartrock the Leaper. And important to note, this is the first time we actually see Sam successfully fight someone in the MCU. A lot has been said that Captain America is a very hand-to-hand combat superhero, and Sam Wilson has not. However, he's using the Falcon Tech wings to successfully make up for the fact that he doesn't have superpowers. Once he hangs up with Carly Morgenthau, we then get Bucky chasing down the GRC truck on a motorcycle as Sharon kills one of the guys who were supposed to be transporting them. Again, a lot of quick cuts, so we get another shot of Sam and Bartrock fighting, where he throws the shield and Bartrock throws a chair, and it knocks the shield down to the ground. Now, is that supposed to indicate that, yeah, Sam is a lesser Captain America without the super soldier serum? I mean, all of these guys whipped this thing. That shield is made of vibranium. It should have cut right through this chair. Sam gets a call on his headset from Sharon that they're on their way out in a chopper. Bucky says, listen, man, the air's your thing. Sam throws the shield, breaks the window, jumps out, and here he goes off after the helicopter. Fandoms Assemble audience, rejoice! Shuri has resurrected Red Wing! Again, in my opinion, the coolest robotic sidekick in the MCU, and Red Wing flies out to see, hey, who on that helicopter would be able to fly if I took out this pilot right now? While he's doing that, Carly Morgenthau is debriefing with the Flag Smashers, and here's where everything starts to go downhill for Carly. She starts to tell them, listen, it's okay if we die. The movement will move on without us if we die. It doesn't matter if we lose. She then tries to rally them together, saying, one world, supposed to get a one people, crickets. These guys are not in it for dying. They were in it to help people. I brought this up throughout this show, that the Flag Smashers did not get their own mission within the group. The Flag Smasher in the comics was supposed to be anti-nationalist, big, taking down government agendas, but this Flag Smasher group was 110% a humanitarian organization. For as much as Carly killed people, the rest of the Flag Smashers simply wanted to help people who were stuck in refugee camps. They wanted nothing to do with all this crazy shit she's into, and now she's looking to make herself a martyr to prove a point. They're not down for that. And I really wonder here if she starts to get nervous, like, listen, am I losing these guys? Am I going to be on my own? Because the fact that everyone in this group who had been her loyal servant, not servant, but, you know, servants to the movement, they're not picking up what she's putting down, man. I'm telling you. Back in the air, Sam is chasing down the chopper, which has the GRC delegates in there, and the NYPD is giving chase as well. The chopper, piloted by the Flag Smasher, runs into the NYPD chopper on purpose, and Sam is forced to break off his route. He saves the pilot, Red Wing saves the co-pilot, and the helicopter crashes to the ground. They're on their way down with it, and one of the cooler scenes we've seen with Sam's gear, they hit a bridge, the chopper's coming down on top of them, and between the Falcon wings and the shield, little metaphor there for Sam Wilson, between the shield and the wings, he creates like a dome over himself and the two pilots, and the helicopter crashes on top of them, and they're fine. We then get a jump cut back to Bucky as the Flag Smashers are barricading the transports and finally going to hijack them. I guess whoever was driving the helicopter was a Flag Smasher, but the guys who were driving the truck, they waited to do a transfer. So Bucky chases them down on the motorcycle, and we get that cool scene that they've been teasing since the beginning trailers of the episode, where he runs into the barrier and propels himself off the bike and flies into Dovich. Bucky's out for blood. He's ready to fight, and Carly says, hey, we need a distraction. Give him someone to save. Carly Morgenthau is the smartest villain in the history of villains. Shout out to Doña Medina, who must have taught this girl a creative writing class at some point, and she knows that the hero of this story has to break away from fighting the villain to save the stranded hostages. Now, as he's ripping open the door, enter John Walker. Carly's a little shook here. She saw what he just did to her friend, where he decapitated him with the shield. She immediately goes into, listen, I didn't mean to kill your friend. I don't want to kill people who don't matter, i.e. who don't matter to my movement, but all she says is who don't matter. John Walker, obviously offended at this, says Lamar's life didn't matter, and she says, no, not to me. They start throwing hands around, and Bucky finally gets the truck open as Carly Morgenthau dents John Walker's garage-made shield. Now, what happens from here in regards to John Walker is one of the most confusing storytelling choices I've ever seen in my life. I'll just leave that there for now, and we'll keep moving on. Bucky finally gets the truck open, the guys escape, and someone finally says thank you to Bucky. For the first time in his life, really, because the last time he was doing any good, he was fighting in Germany during World War II with Steve, so no one was really turning around and saying thank you to Bucky specifically. He gets this truck open, and this is the first time as a superhero that Bucky is recognized as such. And John Walker's getting jumped. Bucky jumps in to save him. He gets punched, and a very cool scene with Bucky Barnes. He gets knocked off the little girder temporary building that they're on. He Black Panther claw slides to the edge, and he hits the ground fist down a la Steve Rogers in a beautiful metaphor for Bucky's past, present, and future coming out in his fighting style and athletic ability. Back up in the air, Sam finally chases down the GRC chopper, and we get a scene of him talking to the one woman that Red Wing points out would be able to fly the helicopter if he took out the pilot. Sam says, all right, we're going to count down from 5. And when she hits 5, she's going to take over, and he's going to take out the Flag Smasher. Cut back to John Walker now, and he's 1v5, and he's holding his own against the Flag Smashers until Carly Morgenthau knocks him out. Bucky Barnes is 1v1 against Dovich as Carly Morgenthau crashes the GRC ground transport above their heads. And here we go. Here's the most confusing storytelling choice I've ever seen. We're invested in this show for hours. They haven't even done a heel turn this fast in the MCU movies, which are compressed into an hour and a half, 2 hours. John Walker, while fighting Carly, finally gets up and chooses to save the transport over chasing Carly Morgenthau down the street. We get the symbolism of him throwing down the shield, and he's good now? One decision to save this transport. He throws down his crazy ass shield that he made after killing Bucky and Sam with the real one, and he's a good guy. The Flag Smashers attack him, and he fails. He can't save the transport. But Sam comes in after taking out the pilot, and the woman in the helicopter brings him to safety. Sam finally rejoins this fight, and as John Walker drops the transport, Sam flies in, catches it, and with the help of his, thrusters and his Falcon Tech wings, brings the transport to safety. He flies it up on top of the bridge where the media and a bunch of people are clapping, celebrating. Yeah, woo, woo, woo. When an old man in the crowd says, yeah, that's the Black Falcon, and his younger counterpart to his left says, no, that's Captain America. But before we can celebrate too much, there's still Carly Morgenthau to deal with. Sam and Bucky square off with Carly, ready for a big showdown in front of all these people, and enter Bartok the Leaper, who hits them with smoke cannons that he found from somewhere, and Carly goes on the run. Now, as she's running, Sam and Bucky chase her, and the Flag Smashers go underground in some kind of warehouse. Carly's looking for Dovich. She hears whistling. She comes around a corner, and bang, straight in front of Sharon Carter. And I gotta be honest, I know that this was a theory I brought up. A bunch of people were high on this. You all know my theories about the Power Broker and how I wanted this to shape out. And I absolutely hate Sharon Carter as the Power Broker. Her and Steve really cared for each other. The last time they saw each other, they had shared a kiss. And now all that's gone because she lied to him. Thanos snapped. He thought she had died. She didn't. She apparently went to Madripoor for the last 5 years and became the power broker. That's the only explanation for this, honestly, because there's no way in 6 months she would ever be able to amass this power. So the only explanation is she had to have lied to Steve, and I hate that because I hate any betrayal to Steve Rogers. Anyway, so Sharon and Carly are face to face, and Sharon's saying, hey, come back, work for me. Carly's saying, no, you just want your muscle back, and things are starting to unfold for the viewer that you're like, ah, shit, Sharon is the power broker. When for confirmation, enter Barchok the Leaper, who now knows Sharon's secret identity and tries to turn the screws on her. He says, hey, you were going to pay me double. You need to pay me 4 times what you were going to. And Sharon is not feeling that. She shoots Barchok, bullets fly, and Carly takes the opportunity to shoot Sharon. As Sharon's on the ground, Carly's got the gun. Barchok is dead. Sam approaches and starts trying to talk down Carly Morgenthau. He sees that Sharon is obviously still alive, so now his number one priority here is to reach Carly Morgenthau and get her to actually turn back to the light. Carly's not having any of that. She starts to attack Sam, but much like Steve and Bucky fighting in Winter Soldier, Sam will not fight back. She's beating the crap out of him. She's screaming, stay down, stay down. And Sam gets up in what I was really hoping was going to be a I could do this all day reference. Sam just says no, and Carly gets even more enraged. She's just pounding on the shield. Again, stay down, stay down. When we quick cut over to the Flag Smashers on the run, stopped by John Walker and Bucky Barnes. How did they find them? Well, they downloaded the Flag Smasher app. Who knew that Carly had someone in app development who threw that shit up on the Apple App Store and Google Play? But she did. And Bucky downloaded that app, and him and John came with the police, and they arrest the Flag Smashers who think they're going to meet Carly Morgenthau to escape to safety. Now here, John Walker gives them a quote from Abraham Lincoln, which reads, "Mercy bears richer fruit than strict justice." Mercy bears richer fruits than strict justice. This coming from the guy who, the only person he's ever arrested in this show, he chopped his head off with a shield. Again, this is the quickest heel turn in the history of media. There's absolutely no way, as the viewer, at least if you've been listening to this podcast and swayed by my thoughts, would ever accept that John Walker could possibly become a good guy this fast. Now back to Sam and Carly, who are still fighting. He's still trying to get through with her when Carly picks up a gun. She points it at Sam, and as the viewer, you think she's about to pull the trigger. Sam Wilson with no protection other than his new Falcon suit. We hear the gunshot, and it's Sharon. Before anyone has the opportunity to reveal Sharon as the power broker to Sam Wilson, she shoots Carly, and Carly dies in Sam's arms. Off he flies with Carly Morgenthau's body to get her to the medics in an attempt to save her life. He drops Carly off, and he's immediately attacked by the press. They start to ask him questions about being Captain America, about the Flag Smashers, about who in the United States government gave him permission to be Captain America, and the GRC cut in to come and thank him, the members of the GRC, and they thank him as Captain America for defeating the Flag Smashers and those terrorists. Now this gives Sam an opening to speak to them about some key issues that he has with what they're doing and as a black man in the United States of America. Sam confronts the GRC about calling them terrorists at all. He says you really got to be careful with that word, calling them terrorists, radicals, etc. These are people just like you and me who are trying to live, just trying to live peacefully and freely. And they found new homes in the 5 years. They were the ones that were here dealing with all the mess after the snap. They were the ones who tried to rebuild their lives over the last 5 years. And you are the terrorists to them, coming in and trying to relocate them back to the shitty situations they were in before the blip. He speaks to the common struggle and how it's a good thing that the GRC committee don't really know what to do, how they feel helpless. And he akins that to being one of the Flag Smashers of these refugees in Eastern Europe who are being relocated, or how it feels to being a black man in the United States of America And he says as much to them when the U.S. liaison to the GRC says, listen, you don't understand what I'm going through. You don't understand how hard this is. Sam says, how do I not understand? I'm a black man wearing the stars and stripes. And I'm dealing with the struggles of being a black man, as well as dealing with the struggles of all you right now looking at me, thinking in the back of your minds that I don't deserve to be wearing this uniform. He then starts to question their motives and their processes. He asks, who's in the room with you when you're making these decisions? You say it's so hard, but imagine how much harder it would be to make the decisions you're making if you're actually listening to the people who it would be impacting. Sam ends his quote, which is being recorded, mind you, by the media and broadcast over the local news channels. And he says, so what are you guys going to do? You can redraw borders with a swish of your pen. You can do all these things. And what are you going to do with that power? Now that I've checked you, how are you going to use the ultimate power that you have at your possession? Are you going to keep infringing on the rights of these refugees to live free in any manner that they choose? Because if you don't, you're only going to spur on another Carly Morgenthau. He says to them, listen, you guys created her by what you're doing. And if you continue to do so, you're going to get something much worse than Carly Morgenthau. She was an 18-year-old girl who rallied people from all over the world to her cause. Imagine what someone who already has some modicum of power will do to you if you don't change your ways and really rethink what you're doing here. As Sam is talking, like I said, it's being broadcast on the news, and we get a shot of Isaiah Bradley watching it with his grandson, Eli, who looks very touched, but more on them later. So after he's done preaching to the GRC and speaking to the television cameras, Sam makes his way back over to Bucky. Sam, kind of gives him a, hey, how did I do there? And Bucky says, oh, I wasn't paying attention. After I heard Black Man in the Stars and Stripes, I kind of zoned out and started texting. Which is obviously all in good fun. These guys are brothers again. They're reunited. There's no bad blood there anymore. And he calls him Cap for the first time. He says, nice job out there, Captain America. Now, I really would have liked to see a callback to Captain America and the First Avenger here, where Bucky was more involved in that crowd, or the gentleman we saw earlier who corrected his elder and said, no, that's not the Black Falcon, that's Captain America. And Captain America and the First Avenger, Bucky, after Steve returns all of the POWs safely back to camp, Bucky calls out, let's hear it for Captain America. That would have been a much cooler acknowledgement to me of Bucky passing the mantle in his own mind from Steve over to Sam Wilson. But I like that they included the acknowledgement here in some way. The guys then walk over to Sharon, who, has a gunshot wound to the abdomen. Sharon, being, not supposed to be in the United States of America, I guess, does not want medical attention, who might start asking her questions of who she is. So her and Bucky leave, and before they go, Sam, now acknowledged by the world's government as Captain America, says, hey, Sharon, I didn't forget about that pardon. The NYPD then comes over, calls Sam Cap, again, nice to hear, and then sends him to go get the other flag smasher. As he flies off, we never find out what happened to that flag smasher, or if it's just supposed to be assumed that he's then on this transport. We see the rest of the flag smashers getting loaded in after they've been arrested to be taken to the raft. The police officer who's loading them in says, one people, one world, acknowledging, hey, you're going to be okay. Now, what happens next? I question whether that guy was actually a flag smasher or if he was working for Zemo. As the transport begins to pull away, it gets blown up, and we get a pull out, and we see Zemo's butler sitting in his car with the little trigger, watching the transport blow up. Obviously, this was orchestrated by Zemo. We then get a shot of Zemo laying in bed listening to the radio in the raft, where he gets the confirmation that indeed all of the flag smashers were taken out. Now, in terms of Zemo's goal, let's take a look at the scoreboard here. All of the flag smashers are now dead, except for potentially the one that Sam went and arrested if he wasn't on that transport. So we're left with Bucky Barnes and John Walker as the only two people to have received the Super Soldier Serum. I'll call back to my concerns of prior episodes, where there's supposed to be around 12 doses still hanging out there that Wilfred Nagel had made, and we most certainly did not see those doses in Carly's case. I'll be interested to see if in future shows they bring back either that solo Flag Smasher or the other people, the other doses that might have been floating out there in some way. We then find Val, John Walker, and his wife talking about the Flag Smashers that we just saw killed, and we get an intro to his future as the U.S. agent. But this scene rather confuses me. As I said in our prior episodes, particularly the one where we did a Fandom Academy on Madam Hydra, i.e. Val, about how she was a part of the Leviathan, a secret Russian terror organization similar to Hydra. And of course, at one point in her comic book history, she was also Madam Hydra, the lead female operative in that organization. And again, if you need a refresher on her history, go back to the Fandom Academy episode where we also talk about her being in love with Nick Fury and how she was a lead in the female force, the femme force of S.H.I.E.L.D. So she's been a good guy, she's been a very bad guy, and she's been a very secret bad guy. And this scene here comes off as very kitschy, so I'm really not sure in what capacity Val is supposed to fit in here. I'm assuming we'll get a clearer idea of what her intentions for John Walker might be when we see who she is in the MCU in Black Widow. But while she is sitting there with John Walker's wife, we get kind of a comedic vibe out of this scene where she's saying, oh, he's probably just having problems with the helmet. And then he comes back in light spirits. There's no ominous music here. There's nothing to make us believe that the U.S. agent is not going to be anything other than a good guy, which throws into sharp contrast how I thought Val was fitting into this story. So we get the reveal that, yeah, Val names him the U.S. agent. He's in his comic-accurate costume, the black and red version of his blue and red Captain America costume, and he's off to go be the U.S. agent in whatever capacity Val needs him to be. A few quick more scenes here before we wrap up our episode recap. We then get Bucky Barnes going and visiting Yori. We had a lighthearted scene, but couldn't get away without another shot to the soul. So we have Bucky showing up to Yori's apartment, and Yori says, hey, what are you doing here? It's not Wednesday. And it brought me to a realization that all of this happened like within a week. Bucky was fighting the Flag Smashers in the first place in Eastern Europe with Sam. Then he was in New Orleans. He was in New York City again. He was in Latvia. He was in Lithuania. And all this happened very, very quickly. So Yori is not sitting here wondering where Bucky is. I was worried that the extended time frame I thought this occurred over, that Yori might have passed away or something because weeks or months had passed. But we're only a couple days that this story unfolded over. So Yori's like, hey, Bucky, what are you doing here, man? And then Bucky sits him down to finally make amends. He says, listen, Yori, it's about your son. Your son was killed by the Winter Soldier, and that was me. All we get from Yori in response to this is why, and he's clearly very heartbroken, as I knew he would be. I never wanted Bucky to tell Yori that he killed his son, because now Yori almost has no one left. And while this could have been an opportunity to make Bucky feel good, to have him come to a realization that he's no longer the Winter Soldier, when as we see him leave the apartment, we can tell the look on his face is him living all the pain and anguish, at least for this short period of time, of what his past as the Winter Soldier has brought to him and has done to other people. After he leaves Yori's apartment, we then get a cut to the next morning where Dr. Rayner, his therapist, receives a little present on her desk, and it's the notebook. It's the amends notebook, and everything's crossed out. Now, I had a problem with this because why is he giving away Steve's notebook? It should have Steve's notes in it too, unless Bucky already took that out. I think he'd want to keep that and just say, hey, I finished. Nonetheless, it informs the viewer that Bucky has completed his list of amends. Apparently, Yori Nakajima was the last one on the list, although I didn't get that impression from the show. But hey, we're going to wrap things up in a nice, neat bow. So Bucky is done making amends, and he's walking back through the streets in New York, where he stops by the sushi bar that he would sit at with Yori every week, and he sees Yori sitting with the bartender he went on a date with. So there we go. Wrap that up in a nice, neat bow too. Yori now knows he's at peace. He's going to be able to live his life, and Bucky is going to be able to leave Yori in this life without any regrets. Cut over to Sam at Isaiah Bradley's house, where he meets Eli in the front, and he calls him the Black Falcon. He says, "Hey, what are you doing here, Black Falcon?" And Isaiah Bradley comes from behind Sam and says, "Hey, he might be black, but he's not the Falcon anymore." Sam then follows Isaiah around the back of the house where Isaiah is still gardening, and they talk about what Sam did, speaking to the GRC, particularly in front of the TV cameras, broadcasting to the world that Captain America is a black man. And Isaiah informs Sam that, "Hey, I don't know if you saw, but the GRC is standing down on their plans. What you did was very, very effective." Isaiah then makes a joke that Sam's not any Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, etc., but that he's special, and what he's doing, taking up the shield, is very special. It's an acknowledgement after Isaiah Bradley told him that, "Hey, you're not a self-respecting black man if you would ever become Captain America." We get an acknowledgement from Isaiah here that, no, it's okay that Sam picked it up. He respects him, and he's very happy he did. Sam then says, "Hey, the fight won't be easy," but Sam's not throwing away all the sacrifices of all the people who came before him, especially that of Isaiah Bradley, the first black Captain America, and off they go to the Smithsonian. Sam takes Isaiah and Eli to the Smithsonian, to the Captain America exhibit. Sam, who obviously was probably approached by the Smithsonian to put his own piece into the exhibit, said, "Hey," and I'm assuming this is what happened, it was off camera, but in my little headcanon, Sam said, "Hey, before you could put anything in here for me, there's another man you have to recognize." They walk around the exhibit and they get to a statue of Isaiah Bradley. And in the back, we could see pictures of the other 300 men that were a part of this experiment that Isaiah Bradley took part in. And there's a nice little plaque next to a full-size bronze statue of Isaiah, which explains what he did in his contributions. Sam turns to Isaiah and says, "Now no one will ever forget what you did to this country." Isaiah starts crying, and they embrace. Once Sam arrives back in New Orleans, it's cookout time, and here we get primarily the very happy future of Bucky Barnes. Bucky shows up with a store-bought cake, which everyone who continues the "he's invited to the cookout" trend on TikTok has acknowledged that that was the perfect thing for the white boy to do in this situation. But outside of that, he's family, man. Sam is being loved on by everybody. Bucky is being loved on by everybody. He's playing with Sam's nephews. He's over there flirting with Sarah with a bunch of the neighborhood kids hanging on his arm. And at least for this moment, Sam and Bucky are getting the happy ending that they deserve. Sam is firmly Captain America in everyone's minds, and everyone loves him for it, at least until we get to a season 2 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or we tackle any other race issues in Captain America 4. And Bucky Barnes has found himself a home and a family, at least for now, until he can go to Wakanda and live out what I feel is his true calling as the White Wolf. Then bang, black screen, and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier headline comes up. Season over, we're done, folks. But then in Thanos snap style, the Falcon starts to fold away, and we get Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Captain America and the Winter Soldier. This was such a good scene, and it was completely ruined for me by them putting Captain America and the Winter Soldier. They should have said Captain America and the White Wolf, or Captain America and James Buchanan Barnes, Captain America and Bucky, Captain America and the white boy who we're all cool with in New Orleans. I don't know. It should have been something else than Captain America and the Winter Soldier. You acknowledged that Sam is no longer the Falcon, and you threw away the whole show there and the whole transformation of Bucky letting go of the Winter Soldier to me. He's the White Wolf in my eyes. It should have said Captain America and the White Wolf, and I hope they change that by the time season 2 or, Captain America 4 comes around. And last but not least, we get a post-credits stinger again. Sharon Carter before, I don't know, what is this? The Council of Superhuman Affairs, the GRC, the U.S. Senate, the U.S. Attorney General's office. I don't know. This fucking guy has been everywhere, so I don't really know in what capacity, but they're following through on Sam's promise to get her a pardon. She is being offered her position back at S.H.I.E.L.D., and they close with a welcome home, Agent Carter. Sharon turns to leave with a big smile on her face, and then we get the villain drop in her eyes. She gets outside. She immediately gets on the phone and says, all right, time to get buyers lined up. Our inventory of super soldiers has all but dried up. But now we have government secrets, we have prototype weapons, we got the entire toy store that S.H.I.E.L.D. has to offer, and get ready for a Nick Fury versus Sharon Carter storyline coming up in the next few MCU movies, and certainly in the future of the Marvel television series, particularly as I believe we're getting a Nick Fury show coming up in 2022 or 2023. But then now that'll do it for the episode recap of Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 6. What a great show to watch and what a great show to cover. However, I can't leave you there. As you know, Fandoms Assemble strives to be the number one resource on the internet for all those who love to think way too hard about our favorite movies, books, and television shows. If we're going to honor that promise, we can't give you the same old boring episode recap. We got to give you some notes and analysis. We got to give you some things to think about. So here are the top 5 questions from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 6. Now, before we get started, a quick note. I'm going to do a Falcon and the Winter Soldier recap in the next episode of Fandoms Assemble. So these questions will be geared specifically towards this episode and what I did like and what I didn't like about it, as opposed to future projecting or deep diving on how this is going to affect the future of the MCU. That being said, question number 1, how do they think that they could turn John Walker around so fast? We talked about this in depth in the episode recap, but him coming in with a psycho homemade shield ready to kill Carly Morgenthau for killing Lamar is the opposite of the lead up to someone returning from being a villain into a superhero. The guy showed up with bad intentions. Now, as he's fighting and also going through his crazy squinting, he saves the GRC transport and he throws down the shield. Now, I get the metaphor there. And if that happened 3 episodes from now, okay, that would have made sense. Walker finally broke good and we're supposed to like him. Really for the first time, not even like him again. We've never liked John Walker. We've never been made to like John Walker through this entire series. He's been set up as the villain since the ending of the first episode. Not the big villain, but he's been set up as a villain. We see Sam turn in the shield, and then we have the government give it back to him by the end of the first episode. He is absolutely supposed to be someone we don't like. So now, the last thing that John Walker tries to do to Bucky and Sam is cut their heads off with the shield. They haven't said one word to him since. And yet, one joke about Lincoln, him throwing down the shield and attempting to save people, is enough for him and Sam and Bucky to be cool? No way, not buying it. I question how much COVID affected the writing of this show. Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan obviously being big celebrities now with their own schedules and tough to fit in. We have this guy, John Walker is Kurt Russell's son. So obviously he has his own schedule, celebrity agenda to keep up. So I wonder if we missed out on a couple episodes here. We got missed out on a couple plot points that would have made John Walker's story more believable. But because we didn't get that, I don't believe it. Question number 2. And again, this is specific to this episode. Where the hell were Doctor Strange and Spider-Man? These 2 guys are the protectors of New York City. Doctor Strange protects the sanctum of New York. Spider-Man is the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man of Queens. There is no way, and this is a continuation of the issues with WandaVision, and this is just an issue in the MCU at large. There's no way that since this universe is so big, that the superheroes who live in that area would not respond to a threat like this. Question number 3, and I kind of answered this already in the episode recap, but how could Sharon Carter have become the power broker in 6 months? We're left with no option other than to not believe that that was the case. There's no way that Sharon Carter could have picked up the power, 1, got snapped back, 2, made it to Madripoor, and then gained the trust of the underworld and became the power broker in 6 months. As far as Steve Rogers knew, she got snapped, and apparently she didn't. And it raises an even larger question to me as to why she didn't reach out to Steve or to Sam or to Bucky in the first place. Nick Fury was obviously snapped, but she had way more allies in the United States still post the events of Avengers Infinity War that I find it very hard to mesh up with her character, that she would have just defaulted to going to Madripoor, going underground, and becoming the power broker. I am taking full credit for the Sharon Carter is a Skrull theory that's going around the internet, and I could kind of see how this could lead into Secret Invasion with Sharon Carter being a Skrull, but then that leads to where the hell is the real Sharon Carter? Is she on that spaceship with Nick Fury? Is the story of how she became the power broker so unbelievable to us because it's not really true? It's the Skrulls not really knowing who Sharon Carter is, what her backstory is, or how she would, interact with these characters? I don't know. But I'll be interested to see if the Sharon's a Skrull comes out in the next few series, or by the time we get some of these movies that are supposed to be coming out by the end of 2021. Question number 4. And again, this is just my shot at being very disappointed with this at the end of the episode recap, but why the hell didn't they change Bucky's name at the end? He's obviously no longer the Winter Soldier. He's either the White Wolf, or you could just call him Bucky. If you just want him to be Bucky, Captain America's best friend, well, take a look at the March 1941 cover, also featuring Captain America's young ally, Bucky. Here he is with red hair and looking all of 14 years old. Obviously not our boy Bucky that makes all the ladies swoon, Sebastian Stan. But that was an Anthony Mackie interview reference, by the way. But then just change his name to Bucky. Don't keep it the Winter Soldier, and just ignore what you did for this entire show in getting him to unload all the baggage that comes with being the Winter Soldier. And question number 5, why the hell did they include that stupid neck thing on Sam's Captain America costume? But before we get there, as you know, Fandoms Assemble strives to be the number one resource on the internet for all those who love to think way too hard about our favorite movies, books, and television shows. To truly honor that promise, we can't just raise life's great questions, we got to answer a few of them ourselves. So sharpen your pencils, crack open those textbooks, give a big shout out to our boy Red Wing, and join me for Fandom Academy Lesson 6, your new Captain America, Sam Wilson. So I'd like to start this episode's Fandom Academy with a quote from Sam Wilson from Captain America and the Mighty Avengers, Volume 1, Issue number 4, which reads, Captain America is not just for the good days. It can't be. I can't be. If Captain America can't stand for the dream on the very worst day when America has fallen, then there is no Captain America. Because our worst day is where we start from, where we rise from. And if the man in the flag is too special to fall and rise and struggle with the rest, then God help us all. I loved that. I loved reading that. And that's why I love Captain America so much. Not for the fact that he represents America. I am from the United States of America. I'm very proud of that. But Cap doesn't stand for the ideals of the United States of America to me. He stands for people's personal morals and ideas. He stands for always doing the right thing. He stands for always standing up for the little guy. He stands for the way I at least aspire to live my life. And that's why I love Captain America. And that quote really embodied that, and I just wanted to share that with you. So while we first meet Sam Wilson in September 1969's Captain America 117, making him the first African-American superhero in mainstream comics, when approaching this Fandom Academy, I wanted to focus solely on Sam Wilson's history as Captain America. So Sam first becomes Captain America in Captain America Volume 7, Issue number 25. After a long, complicated story where Arnim Zola, you'll remember him from Captain America and the First Avenger as the Red Skull's henchman, and later the guy who preserved his mind inside the computer when Steve and Natasha finally find out what Hydra's all about and how Hydra's still around. So in that story arc, Sam was given the mantle of Captain America by Steve Rogers directly after Arnim Zola had stripped him of his super soldier powers, and he became the skinny kid from Brooklyn again, just really, really old. So now Sam has the shield, and Marvel is exploring a new age of Marvel Comics, kind of an offshoot. Sam is dating Arnim Zola's daughter, Jet. They're fighting the Red Skull's daughter, Sin. And in one of his first issues, we get the original reference of the scene in Madripoor where Sam says, "Hey, I feel like I'm dressed like a pimp." During a confrontation with the Red Skull's daughter, Sam's identity is allegedly revealed, his secret identity, as being a drug-dealing pimp named Snap Wilson, which was a lie created by the Red Skull to discredit Sam via a long history of racism. In the MCU, Sam Wilson is based out of New Orleans because that's where Anthony Mackie's from, but in the comics, Sam Wilson is from Harlem, where he split his time not only as a superhero, but also as a social worker, helping the people and the children of Harlem live a better life. So it was a very stereotypical lie to come up with that Sam was just a pimp from Harlem to discredit him as Captain America. Now, I just want one thing to be clear. When I'm talking about Sam Wilson's history as Captain America, I'm not diving back into the 60s and 70s as we have in other Fandom Academy episodes. Much like Isaiah Bradley's story wasn't told in Truth, Red, White, and Black until 2003, Sam Wilson did not don the Captain America shield despite being Captain America's sidekick for 50 years until 2014. Since then, much like Sam Wilson's run here in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he does have some run-of-the-mill Captain America stories, but the Sam Wilson Captain America story is always going to be intertwined with issues of race. In 2015's Captain America #1, the title of the issue is called Off-Brand Cap, where Sam needs to face the music of public opinion as he campaigns across the United States as the new Captain America and faces a whole lot of criticism traveling the country being that black man wearing the stars and stripes. In 2015's Captain America Sam Wilson #6, we finally get the institution of Joaquin Torres as Sam's sidekick, the Falcon, where Torres is actually a human Birdman hybrid who has a very interesting genetic link to the comic book version of Red Wing, who is an actual Falcon. Now, only after roughly a year and a half of Sam Wilson becoming the Falcon in 2016 Avengers Standoff, Steve Rogers gets his power back, which after that story arc concludes, leads to a lot of public pressure for Sam Wilson to return the shield and the mantle of Captain America back to Steve Rogers. After almost being assassinated in public, Steve gives a public blessing to Sam Wilson to be Captain America, and his storyline continues from there to have run-ins with the Flag Smashers, with the U.S. Agent, and many of the characters that we saw in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, as far as where the storyline is now, we go down kind of a rabbit hole. Similar to what we might see in the Disney Plus What If series, Steve Rogers is made to believe that he was actually a Hydra sleeper agent since childhood. So Steve's motivations for the rest of Sam's run as Captain America are skewed towards the evil and deteriorating Sam's image as Captain America moving forward. Through many Avengers crossover events and a lot of complicated details that I'm not going to get into in this Fandom Academy lesson, the real Steve Rogers, the not brainwashed Steve Rogers, is eventually brought back, and no longer wanting to embody the spirit of the shield, he returns the mantle back to the fully restored Steve Rogers and resumes his role as the Falcon by 2017-2018. So as it stands right now, Sam Wilson was only given a 4-year run as Captain America, and his future as Captain America in the Marvel Universe will solely be continued on screen in what has been announced is an upcoming Captain America 4, as well as a Falcon and the Winter Soldier Season 2. But now, as we're running long on time, that'll do it for this episode's Fandom Academy lesson on Sam Wilson. I hope you found that breakdown both informative and entertaining, while giving some very helpful closure and possible insight to any questions that you had about Sam Wilson as Captain America in the Marvel Universe. But now, here's some rapid-fire Easter eggs that you might have missed. First up, as I pointed out in the episode recap, we have Sharon Carter using Natasha's face-warping mask that we saw in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Number 2, staying on Captain America and the Winter Soldier, we get Sam Wilson's first big MCU fight being with Bartok the Leaper, just as Steve's first big MCU fight in the modern day was against Bartok the Leaper on the Lumerian Star at the beginning of that film. Number 3, as I pointed out earlier, we have a few mentions in this episode of some potential next-generation Marvel superheroes, with Joaquin Torres being the Falcon and another shot of Eli Bradley, who will eventually go on to lead the Young Avengers. And lastly, for those who have dedicated themselves to the MCU for the last decade and a half, we have many, many, many references to old movies. Zemo being locked up in the Raft, which of course is the prison run by General Thunderbolt Ross. We get shots of the Smithsonian exhibit that Steve and Bucky have both ventured into wearing their logoless baseball caps, which will now hold the Isaiah Bradley Memorial. And lastly, in Sharon Carter's future is a return to her post as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. We've touched on many times over the course of this show. She was once undercover living across the hallway from Steve Rogers, and she will now be picking up that post as referenced by the U.S. Senator, as she's getting a job back in her old unit, which will provide her extreme access to the underbelly of the U.S. intelligence agency's secrets. But now that'll do it for rapid fire Easter eggs that you might have missed, and that'll do it for this episode of Fandoms Assemble. All apologies to you who have loved Tinfoil Hat Time. As I said earlier, we will not be doing a Tinfoil Hat Time this episode, as I will be doing a full recap of Falcon and the Winter Soldier Season 1 when we come back next time for Fandoms Assemble. I promise, it will not be as long of a wait as it was between episodes 5 and 6. But if you've been enjoying the pod, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. As I said, you don't have to stop the audio right now. Open up your podcast app, give us that 5-star rating, give me a little review, let me know you're listening, and most importantly, subscribe, so that next time when we give the episode breakdown where we're going to be covering Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the entire series, as well as giving you an insight as to where Fandoms Assemble is going to go from here, you got to be hitting subscribe so you get notified when the next episode drops. Also, if you've been enjoying the pod and you have friends, family, a neighbor, a dog, a coworker who loved Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you think would really get a lot of value out of this podcast and the themes and analysis that we touch on here, it is your obligation to share the Fandoms Assemble podcast with them. And number 3, please follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at FandomsPod. That's at FANDOMS Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for clips of this episode, breakdowns and analysis, more news and notes coming from me, as well as brand new content from me, Steve Oborn Jr., where I'm going to be in front of the camera giving you hot takes on really whatever else is out there in the fandom universe. You got to make sure you're following and subscribing on YouTube, folks. But most importantly, as I've mentioned several times already, please join us next time, where I'll be covering Falcon and the Winter Soldier as a whole. We're going to break down where Sam and Bucky go from here. We're going to break down what Sharon Carter and John Walker's futures are as villains in this universe. And with Loki not slated till the second week of June, we'll be talking about how we're going to fill that space. So if you want to know where we go from here, please make sure you tune in. Until next time.